The list is fine. We're going to do the one cardinal sin that I think every single creator around any sport ever always does when the offseason is boring. And that is throw out an incredibly stupid prediction about who is going to win the Stanley Cup, Super Bowl, whatever, what have you, right? It is, although as stupid as it might be, it is the most fun thing to always look back on, and I can't wait to look back on it come next June. So let's hop right into it. We have some early Stanley Cup odds in front of us right now, and I don't even know how to necessarily go about starting this one, but Caleb, is there anything that sticks out to you? I guess we can just start with that. See if there's anything, because there's a couple here for me, but I'll see if there's anything that hits you first.
Okay, so I don't know if we want to start like at the top of the list. The Devils are very high.
They are. Yeah, that is one of the things I did want to talk about.
So we've got their top three are the Hurricanes is one. That makes sense to me. It's maybe overvaluing them a little bit just because they haven't had that playoff success, but I do think they have one of the best rosters in the league.
2 or 3 conferences in a row, though?
Yes.
At some point, they got to break through.
At some point, they have to win a game in those. That's
true.
the thing.
That's true, too.
But I do think they do have a great roster. I've always been a fan of what Carolina's doing. Putting them at number 1 isn't too upsetting. The Devils at 3 is very high. I think they're a great team, but... Man,
yeah. One of the things that I did want to point out, because I did pull up an article to go along with these odds. One of the things that they hit on for this is the Devils went from 28th to 3rd and added Tyler Toffoli. That is the biggest addition. If you, obviously, 28th, I'm assuming, is from last year. So obviously they would have made a big jump since last season. So obviously that's not just Tyler Toffoli. But the thing they add at the end here is if they get Connor Hellebuck at or before the deadline, reserve a parade seat. As true as that might be, as of right now, they do not have Connor Hellebuck.
Yes, you can't do it based on what ifs.
Yeah, what ifs you can't do not bet on what ifs. That is the number one thing that you should be learning from this. Do not bet on the Devils because they might get Connor Hellebuck, because they also might not.
Yeah.
He could go really anywhere, right?
Unless you have insider information that we don't have.
And if you do, tell me.
Yeah. Unless you've got
because I would like to reserve my parade seat.
Yeah. If you've got the Back to the Future 2 sports almanac and the Devils got Connor Hellebuck and went on an 82-0 run to the Stanley Cup, that would be amazing.
Yeah, please let me know. Let me know. Because I have a mortgage that I would like to put on that. So
yeah, exactly.
Just, let me know.
It's the kind of thing where it's right now that seems a little bit high. The one thing I would say about just looking at these rankings in general, there's a whole lot of teams in the top, at least 10, that are, if not extending to 12, that are very interchangeable. I do think it kind of speaks to the parity in the league and how there is no real favorite. Sure, you can say Carolina
because one of the
reasons,
one of the issues I did have with the Devils, and I mean even the Leafs. I mean, I've spoken about my issue with. We did a whole segment on mainly the reason I wanted to do it was my issues with this new look Leafs team. And I mean, the funny thing is, I'm even scrolling up. You just mentioned the parity in the league. I feel like I would definitely Oilers. I want to say swear words at that, them being at 4, but I will.
That's
not,
high.
I will refrain. Yeah, that is high, but I will not use my big mean words.
But I think.
What I will say is I think that Colorado should be above the Devils. I think Vegas should be above the Devils. I have past that. I think that Florida is low considering the run they just went on.
Boston too.
But I mean, Boston did lose Bergeron.
Yes, but they still had the best regular season in
sure.
NHL history.
But losing your number one center can really take a punch in the gut.
But,
yeah.
Falling all the way.
So I don't 10. they yeah, that's fair. And the Bruins have always been a mainstay for the last 10 years on being pretty solid in the playoffs. So I mean, who knows?
They got James Van Riemsdyk. The Bruins got James Van Riemsdyk since when?
Did they?
I did not know that.
I actually did not know that.
Yeah,
Learn
that's
a new
a
thing every day.
sneaky good addition.
Okay, well, refraining from using all my favorite words, why don't we talk about the Oilers at 4? Like, obviously, you just mentioned that you think they're high. I agree with you, but why do you think they're high?
Okay.
Like, what do you?
I do want to mention, that I mean they're that high. Okay, I want to mention a couple things. First, this Bleacher Report article that you pulled up, Simon. Even though they did I mean, I guess it's not them making the ranking. I really like the blurb they put in there. It says Oilers fans claim they've been the second best playoff team for 2 seasons, which is worth precisely nothing. Yeah, that pretty much puts it about right.
Yeah,
But again, the reason they're so high is because of their roster. They have McDavid, they have Draisaitl. Betting against that is difficult. In terms of betting odds, like, and in terms of they're always number one in like.
but one thing that they hit right at the end of there. I don't think you read it, but it's all about Jack Campbell and net.
Yeah.
That their goaltending will make or break this next season, because obviously the thing is, Skinner obviously had a pretty solid season for them last season. Is in that starter slot. I believe he started in the playoffs as well.
For most of it, yeah.
The thing is, we have seen sophomore slumps for goalies are very, 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 very common, especially for rookie goalies that really, really like hit, just absolutely kill it in their first season. We've seen that end careers, that sophomore slump. So, as much as I want that to happen to Skinner, who knows? Maybe I'm just, manifesting voodoo. Let's see what happens. But let's say that does happen. How much do you trust Jack Campbell? Or even, like, we'll stick to that. How much do you trust Jack Campbell as being your starter on a team like that? Is he really good enough to lead the Oilers to a potential Stanley Cup run?
You know what I would say? I would say, yes. But he is good enough to lead the Oilers to the Stanley Cup. We've seen that top-end talent, but he's not consistent enough. He has never been consistent. He can put up, even for the Oilers, even in probably his worst season in the league, he still had, when he came in the playoffs, he played really well. I believe he was in net for their... I think it was their comeback victory against the Kings. He played really well.
Yeah,
but the issue is that he is not that player every game. And I know he's just such an up and down guy, to where if they want to have playoff success, you're gonna need him. You're gonna need that luck to hit his peak, and that is even if he's still the starter at that point. Because if something happens like last year where he's in a down stretch for as long as he could be, and Skinner's starting, like, again, you don't want to have that kind of net front uncertainty for a Stanley Cup playoff team.
No, you do not. And I think in the last, obviously, the Stanley Cup winners just won a cup off of Adin Hill. And before the playoffs, he was not really considered much of anything as a goalie past maybe like a mid-tier, low-tier starter. Maybe even high-tier backup, right? I think, so we've seen teams win with lesser goaltending, but the common theme whenever there has been a lesser goaltender is the fact that there's always been really, really solid defense, and you cannot make that argument that the Oilers have a pretty good defense. Do they have as good of a defense as Vegas did this season? You would have a hard time convincing me of that.
It's also it's a very offensively focused defensive core too. Like, those defenses that you talk about are good because they give their goalie like a security blanket. It's the security to know that they're not going to get a lot of chances on them because the defense is so good. The Oilers with a core of like Nurse and Ceci as your starting pair, those two, they're good defensemen, more so Nurse than Ceci, but their thing is driving offensive play for both of them. They're not, that first pairing is not going to provide a lot of defensive support. Skinner or Campbell is going to have to face a lot of shots. They're not going to have the kind of protection that a guy like Adin Hill did last season.
No, they are definitely not. If we want to move out of the top 5 here, I think we already touched on the one other team that I feel like is kind of controversial. I already mentioned is Toronto, but we already did a full segment on them, I think, 2 weeks ago. So I feel like we can move past that and move into the rest of the rankings here a little bit. Obviously, you already mentioned the biggest thing is the fact that it's just such a huge sign of the parity that is in the league right now, like you mentioned. Like, there are a lot of very even odds here as you move into, I'd say, until you get to like 10, where it's just a lot of people under. Obviously, I do not understand gambling, sports betting. I am not a sports gambler, so I do not understand the odds as well as I probably should to be talking about it on a sports show. But I think I can tell that numbers are close to know that it's a very good sign for the direction the league is heading. And I think, I mean, the one controversial one in like the top 15 that really sticks out to me, and I want your opinion on this now that the Erik Karlsson trade has gone down. What do you think of 13, the Penguins? What do you think of that?
Well, I don't know. Are they? It's not like upsetting. There's no team below them that I'm like, okay, that's like absurd that they're placed above. It's just like I don't know. Sure, maybe this year, fine. The Erik Karlsson move for me. I didn't get to talk about it because I wasn't able to come on the podcast last week, but I did provide my opinion on it when we talked about the potential of it happening. And I said, what's the worst spot for Erik Karlsson to go? Oh, it's Pittsburgh. Because it just feels like it's a wrong move to go to try to add talent on when this team is obviously on the decline. I get like it in terms
at the same time though. What I remember my counter to that even at the time was, what else do you want the Penguins to do? Because they're not going to start cutting off. But are you going to tank when you still have Crosby and Malkin and Letang on the roster?
Trade them.
Yeah, but they don't want to do that. I mean, they're the only reason you're selling any tickets. The ownership is not going to let them trade Crosby.
Yeah, but okay, Simon, think about this. If you're looking at it, like, obviously they're not going to do it. But if you think about team building long term, then
I know you are right
for futures
completely. That is not the argument that I'm making.
In terms of selling tickets, you're going to sell more tickets total if you're back to being a good team in 3 years versus back to being a good team in 10 to 15.
But the thing is, even when you have a guy like Crosby, they want to be able to say that Crosby played for the Penguins their entire career. You don't think that's important, but that is important to somebody in that building, and that's why he's still there. It's important to Crosby, too, I'm sure. I think them bringing in Erik Karlsson and bringing in veterans is them saying that they want to see if they can make one more magic run happen. Will it happen? Absolutely, probably not. The funny thing is, I actually like where they are because 13 feels right. I think even when I was talking about it last week and the week before when we were talking about it, I remember last week my prediction for them was a 7th or 8th seed. And 13 would have them sliding in perfectly right into that spot, pretty much. I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's not, in terms of pure talent level that they have on the roster now, I'm not upset about it. It's the more long-term team building thing, and I don't disagree with any of the points you made in terms of why they did it. I just think it's stupid reasoning, and I think it's going to get them in a lot of trouble.
I don't. Because if I was building a team, I would be on your page, like the same thing as you, 100%. Get rid of the old guys. When I'm playing NHL, I trade the old guys, right? That's the logical side of it. But there is more. As much as everybody says hockey is a business, basketball is a business, all that, there's also the not necessarily. I mean, I don't know. I just don't see. If you could not convince me that the Penguins are going to trade Crosby. Crosby is going to end his career a Penguin.
I also think it's too. I also think it's too late. I also think it's too late to trade him. Honestly,
I think
they've. If they wanted to do it, they should have done it before.
Yeah.
But I'm just gonna okay, if you do, what they're becoming is they're becoming the Red Wings, right? Let me read you out some of the past few Red Wings.
True. Yeah. No. That's fair. That's fair.
So the last winning season they had was 2015-16. After that, they're still okay. They've still got Zetterberg. They're still kind of making the playoffs, but they're fading, right? It's what's going to happen to Pittsburgh in a couple years. They're fading. They're only winning 30 games, 32 games. They're starting to get a losing record, and then the bottom falls out. 17,
I mean,
49,
even
and 5.
think about the Flames. Think about the Flames in like the late 2000s, right?
Yes,
It's the same thing. You're holding
it's
on to your
just
old stars.
It's a bad philosophy. Eric Carlson makes it worse because it makes them even more tied down for cap in the future. I don't know, like
That is the one really big negative. Yeah.
Kyle Dubas,
Because he has probably, despite winning the Norris, I'd argue he has one of the worst contracts in the league.
Kyle Dubas is like, I don't know why he took that job. It's jumping on a sinking ship, I think, because I think he's gonna have a couple good, like, I'm not saying the Penguins will do bad this year. They still have a decent lineup, but it's just like, why are you trying to make another push? It just feels a little bit pointless because they don't have like can you see this roster winning a Stanley Cup? That's what it's about. You want to get to winning the Stanley Cup. They have a second round exit at most type of roster, and that's just what's frustrating about it. It's like, am I upset with where they placed odds wise? No, but it's just an overall philosophy that I disagree heavily with, and it's going to cost them.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It will cost them. There's absolutely nobody would disagree on that. I think it's a very, very, you would be very wrong if you thought that this was the right move for the future of the Penguins. Is it the right move for the now of the Penguins, considering all things considered? Are they trading Malkin? Absolutely not. Are they trading Letang? Probably not. Are they trading Crosby? It'll be a cold day in hell when that happens. Like, all of these things taken into account, would you rather be mediocre or would you rather trade for guys that would allow you to at least try to compete? Because those are your two options. You are tanking. In this, you got to realize Dubas, Dubas, that's how you say his name, right? All of a sudden, I'm doubting myself. Yeah, okay. You got to realize he got there, even if he wanted to, even if he walked into the ownership's office and said, I want to tank. I want to go get some young guys. We're going to get you guys back contending in 3 years. You know what they would have said to him? No. Like, they would have turned that down instantly. Whether it's the right decision or not, doesn't matter, right? That's the thing. So, I don't know. I think you're totally right, but I mean,
yeah,
who knows? I think we should move on from the Penguins. I think we've talked enough about the Penguins over the last 3 weeks.
I agree.
But
I'll just move. I don't know if there's the rest of the list. I don't know if it's quite as notable. Just because it's a bunch of middle of the pack teams. Like, I'm not gonna.
Well, we can.
I'm not gonna.
We can talk about. We can just
21.
Yeah, well, the one thing that I really appreciate as a Flames fan and how mediocre we are is how we are at exactly 15. That just feels right.
Yeah.
What else? Buffalo at 17. I kind of thought. Yeah, that was weird. But I kind of thought Buffalo should have been higher. Ottawa could have been higher. Because considering, although that just depends on how high you are on their acquisition of Tarasenko. I feel like the Red Wings is another surprising one to me. Who knows what could happen with that? I feel like I feel like they should be higher a little. I feel like I'd put the Red Wings. Actually, they're tied with the Blues.
The Canucks do feel high. I just said I wouldn't get mad about the Canucks, but they do feel high. Looking at these other teams.
Like what I mean is like I feel like I'd swap like the Red Wings and probably the Canucks.
The other thing, Simon, you do have to look about, because this isn't just a power rankings, it is odds. So they will rank certain teams ahead of other teams, but that doesn't mean, like, the Devils and Leafs are technically tied for second with the same odds. That adds
which is what I was looking at, yeah.
And
basically all I'm saying when I say that is that I think they should probably move one spot up, but it's just the fact that I cannot imagine betting on the Canucks over the Red Wings.
Just look at look at the gap, especially at those odds. So I think the interesting stuff in this ranking honestly comes from the gaps between teams. So you said there's a pretty clear top 11 or so. Yeah, because the rankings for the Red Wings plus 200 versus the Kings plus 2,800. There's a big gap there.
Yeah.
And then you've got those dark horses kind of ranked in together. Another big drop off starting at the Senators and going. Until you got to the Canucks, and there's another big drop off from the Canucks to the Blues.
One thing that I really want to end this off with. Would you, and this goes back to how, one thing that I thought, because we were looking at odds, which is something that you just pointed out, and I think that's a very important thing to look at. How many people do you think are going to put money on the 20,000 odds for the Chicago Blackhawks?
More than they should.
Yeah.
because
Like, I'm
it's
really
not gonna
curious.
happen.
I can't wait till we get to like September and it comes. I see the TSN Instagram post that Drake put $200,000 on Chicago to win the cup or something stupid like that. Like, I can't wait because it's gonna happen. It is. I predict it because with those odds, like, it's not going to happen. Like, the funny thing is they have just as good of a chance as Arizona or the Flyers or whatever. Less than the Flyers, obviously. Like, but the fact that they got Connor Bedard, there's going to be people who are going to be like, ooh, they just might. They won't.
Such a terrible roster.
It is absolutely horrendous. But imagine, I'm not talking about what will happen. I'm talking about like just the fact that people will bet on that. There is going to be people who will put obscene amounts of money on that. Like, because they should be just as bad as Arizona, Anaheim. They should be at 25,000 too for odds. There's no reason. The only reason they have that like 5,000 less is Connor Bedard.
Yeah.
Like, they are just as bad as the rest of those teams, if not worse. I've heard people saying that they don't think Arizona will be as bad this year. Like, I think that Arizona probably should be in front of Chicago.
The Ducks could be better too.
Ducks too. That's a very good point. Yeah. Like, there are teams here that like should be above Chicago, but the only reason they're not is because of a very special boy who got drafted first overall, who's going to take over the league in his first year because every rookie does that, right? It's like
this is how odds draw you in. There's discrepancies based on people overvaluing things, and then you look at it.
Yep. I mean, hey,
it's not that bad of a deal.
Hey, I'd put $5 on it. I won't, but I would. If I was a betting man, I would put like $5 on that, and you know, if when that cold day in hell shows up, I'll be a very happy man. But I mean, past that, yeah, like the rest of this, yeah, there's not much left to talk about there. I just wanted to touch on Chicago because I think that's an interesting thing. I'm curious how that's going to turn out. I hope some people are dumb enough to put some money on Chicago.
Oh, they will be. It's betting. Everybody is dumb.
True. That's fair. Unless you watch the Trick Play podcast. Then you're a smart bettor. Everybody else that sucks, yeah.
Yeah.